Good evening, Rowan. It's the 29th of April 2016 and it's about 11:45, and obviously I'm making you my usual Friday evening video to reassure you I won't be seducing any priests over the weekend, so there's no need for you to worry again. That's amazing, isn't it? Anyway, I thought we could have a little chat this evening about the foreword that you've written to a document that's come out this week on the 22nd of April. It was published, well, that's a week ago, where the people who've written this document anyway, a group of activists, want Cambridge University to disinvest from fossil fuels. And you've written the foreword to this in a very moralising tone, as you usually do, but I particularly want to concentrate on one of the statements that you've made in this foreword. We've just seen the entirety of it, and I just want to take out this one statement that you've made, and you're talking about the emissions of carbon dioxide, really. And you say, the cost of our slowness or indifference to these matters is immensely grave for the poorest in our world, and many of them are bewildered by our sluggish responses. Well, what I want to talk about, really, I've already mentioned all the moralising you did about the environment while you were the Archbishop of Canterbury, and shown clips of you saying or agreeing that it was a part of faith and that bishops of the Church of England had to regard taking care of the environment as a part of their faith. You did that in a talk that you gave, a conversation that you had at the University of Surrey, and you were pushing this agenda all the time. You were going over to Copenhagen. I've done a video about that, and various videos I've done about your environmentalism. For example, the talk that you gave at the launch of Eco Church in January this year, and presented evidence that in fact the claims that you make are completely false, and certainly very much exaggerated, and there isn't actually any evidence for this ridiculous notion that emitting carbon dioxide causes the earth to heat up, and in fact the ice caps are expanding, not contracting. So I've already talked about all of that, and I've also talked about your complete and utter hypocrisy flying all over the world on long haul flights. You went over to North America at least twice last year, and I think it might have been 3 times, but at least twice. You've gone on various short haul flights into Europe as well, and only recently you were in Rome. I think that was last week or the week before. You were in Rome. You've been to Germany, you've been to France. You may have got a train to France, but it's quite unlikely that you got the train to go to Frankfurt and to Madrid, and you also flew to Singapore last year as well. So a lot of flights you take for someone who is constantly moralising about carbon dioxide emissions, and I've also pointed out that you do own at least 2 houses, and then you're living in a third, and these are all full of consumer goods and materials that have to be extracted, manufactured and transported, and these are in fact way in excess of your needs. And this is also an issue because you're completely obsessed with a socialist view of the world. There should be a more equal distribution of wealth. Wealth should be redistributed, so why, when you've got so much in excess of what you need, are you not redistributing your wealth? So do that first before you even think about moralising to anyone else. And also, I've talked about your hypocrisy towards me as well, that you keep accusing me of things that you're actually guilty of yourself, and moralising at me as if there's something wrong with me, simply because I'm pointing out that you're a lousy hypocrite and a psychopath and a scumbag, and that you spend all your time lying and smearing other people just to deflect criticism and judgment on yourself for your evil behaviour. So I've mentioned that before. So I'm now moving on to another factor, and I'm going to read this sentence again. You're talking about reducing carbon dioxide emissions, really, and you say, the cost of our slowness or indifference to these matters is immensely grave for the poorest in our world, and many of them are bewildered by our sluggish responses. So, the point I want to make is that you were Archbishop of Canterbury. You were appointed in 2002. I think that the appointment was announced in July 2002, and then you were enthroned in February 2003. So you held office from February 2003 to December the 31st, 2012. Well, that's nearly the end of, nearly the total of 10 years, almost entirely 10 years you were actually in post. You'd been enthroned and you were doing the job, and so on. So the point I want to talk about now is, as I've said, you were spending all that time moralising about environmentalism and telling other people what to do and reduce carbon dioxide emissions, and that bishops had to regard that as being part of their faith and so on. So you were doing all of that, and now you're telling Cambridge University they have to disinvest from fossil fuels because they're just terrible, heinous sinners if they're investing in fossil fuels. But in the 10 years that you were Archbishop of Canterbury, you didn't do anything about the fact that the Church of England has huge investments in oil companies, in Royal Dutch Shell and in Exxon Mobil. And Exxon Mobil was actually apparently funding people who were disputing the anthropogenic global warming model, which you were promoting so much. So you were investing in this company an absolutely huge amount of money. A large percentage of the Church of England's investments, which I'm going to demonstrate on some slides in a minute, which also shows the annual report of the Church Commissioners in 2012. At the end of 2012, it shows this report, and it shows, I haven't shown all of the Church of England's investments, but I have shown the fact that the largest part of its investments, some of them were in Exxon Mobil and Royal Dutch Shell. So this is just complete, it's just astonishing hypocrisy. If there weren't enough examples already of your astonishing hypocrisy, where you're going round over to Copenhagen and wanting international deals and world government and all this kind of thing in order to avert this catastrophe of global warming, when you're at the helm of a church that has a huge amount of investment in oil companies, and you didn't do a thing about it, and it was drawn to your attention, and the Archbishop of Canterbury is actually one of the Church Commissioners, and the Church Commissioners are the people who are responsible for managing the investments of the Church of England. So I'm going to show some slides now showing what the Church of England investments were in 2012 as of the 31st of December 2012, which was when you left office, and you'd been in post for 10 years moralising all the time about carbon dioxide emissions and so on, and now you're moralising at Cambridge University to disinvest from fossil fuels, and you did nothing, absolutely nothing about the churches. The Church of England's investments in oil companies, and I believe there were also investments in mining companies as well, but I don't know if they were coal mining or mining tar sands or whatever. I don't know what they were mining, so I won't say anything about that, but you were definitely hugely invested in oil companies, and I'm going to show the slides demonstrating that now, and also some other articles that were written criticising the Church of England's investments in these oil companies, and particularly in ExxonMobil, who were funding people who were arguing against the anthropogenic global warming hysteria, which, I mean, I argue against it. But you're not funding me to argue against it, are you? So the point is really, it's simply an ideology that you're driving, and it's the same, you know, with your hypocrisy around sexual morality as well. Well, and every other kind of morality. But there you are, moralising to everybody else, and I just don't even know what to say about this hypocrisy. It's just absolutely unbelievable. Because if you've moralised about anything more than anything else, then it's been global warming and environmentalism. And there you are. What outrageous hypocrisy. So anyway, I'm going to show these slides now, but don't forget, I won't be seducing any priests over the weekend, so you can relax and keep practising those Yorkshire puddings. Hasta la próxima.
You stated that bishops have no option but to take up the cause of the environment, not because of what the world says, but because it's inherent in your faith.